Hi, I'm Rick Ducey. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of BIA Kelsey. And we just completed a really interesting study working with the Council for Research Excellence, looking at the user experience on cross-platform video kinds of media. And some of the approaches we took were, basically we looked at the existing research, both among industry research and academic research. My partner in this project was Dr. Patricia Phelan from George Washington University. She led up the review of the academic research, and I took responsibility for the industry research. The idea was when people experience video, whether it's TV, PC, video games, mobile, all different kinds of video, what is that experience? And it's content, a linear experience with content. It's a on-demand experience with content. It's gaming, it's entertainment, it's news, it's information, it's advertising, all different kinds of content. Does it matter what the platform is? And does it matter if people experience and engage with that content on more than one platform, either sequentially or simultaneously? Those are some of the questions we were looking at. And also, from an advertising perspective, how do you place your commercial messages across these media? Is it a substitution effect? Is it a complementary, an additive effect? Is there some extra lift you get from a brand or sales perspective? Unfortunately, we looked at well over 100 studies, and the questions are pretty compelling, pretty clear, but the answers are still getting formed, even with all this different research. So some of the more recent research, particularly on the industry side, is quite revealing about what goes on. Can I take a video commercial, a 30-second spot that runs on traditional linear TV, and drop that into a video game and expect it to work? Some of the research we looked at says yes, and in fact, actually that more highly produced video commercial does a better job of engaging the consumer from the perspective of engagement, intention, time spent, and also in terms of outcomes like brand lift and sales lift. Then doing a lower quality commercial that's produced for a video game environment. So in other words, production qualities matter.
Okay, so creative agencies still have a place.
I'm afraid that creative agencies very much have a place because that's a really important part of the consumer experience. What happens is with technology in the early rollout days of technology, consumers are pretty forgiving of lower quality experiences. And in fact, in some cases, that adds to the credibility and the quality of the user experience. So in the early days of CNN doing international news reporting, doing that scratchy sat phone lent an air of authenticity to it. But as people get used to the media, their expectations change. And right now, consumer expectations are pretty high in terms of quality. They look for HD, 3D is coming into the mix. So what does that mean in terms of what we do for creative engagement, for commercial engagement, and do we do our media mix planning and allocation across these platforms individually or somehow together all at once and say, okay, if we put something into TV, something into mobile, something into PC, something into video games, is there an interactive and complementary lift that happens? And the answer seems to be yes. In terms of video, people love video. It's always incredible when you look at the clock and how much time of that 24-hour clock each day people allocate to video experience. So TV, just regular linear broadcast TV, has always been a huge part of people's lives, probably the third biggest activity in terms of allocation of time after work and sleep. So we add more ways to watch video. Netflix, Hulu, video games, TV everywhere. So what happens? Do people take that certain video budget they have in a day and start to reallocate it among all these new choices? And what the research compellingly shows is no. Basically the answer is the more ways you offer video to people, the more ways they learn to say yes. So they keep on giving more and more time to video options across these different platforms. And some of that is...
So just to be clear, you're saying video has a greater percentage of their daily pie of any sort of consumption of anything.
Yes, yeah, video has a greater and growing pie of the time allocation on a 24-hour basis. And that's both adding more video, but you can also double count, since people can watch more than one screen at the same time. So there's co-viewing of screens. People will sit down with their iPads or media tablet while watching a TV set. So you can get sort of double counting. So people are figuring out ways to get more than 24 hours out of a day. So that is also an interesting fact to watch as people evolve their behaviors around these different video options. Their expectations and the way they engage with the video environment changes because they get a different experience when they watch something on an iPad, say, and a big flat panel 3D TV on the screen. They get a combined experience that is something new and different. And the way they engage with the video content as well as the commercial content is something we're still exploring. We don't fully understand that, but we know it's pretty exciting and just has a different impact with people. Then you add into that this whole new dimension of social networking, and as that brings video into all these different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn on the business side, that also is a new form of video that people are finding very engaging. So the difference between scripted content, news, reality kind of content, and user-generated content, that's all sort of morphing to create a whole new set of experiences around video. And there's an interaction between those different types of video and the platform people are consuming and engaging and producing video with. So there's a fair amount of video that people produce with their cell phones, for example, to upload and share. And that is really changing the way people interact with technology. It's becoming more personalized, more engaged. And things like trust, relationship building, credibility, and making decisions all get tied up as a function of technology, content, and the platform and devices that people are using to consume, produce, and share video content.
What should advertisers or brands and media companies be thinking about based on kind of what you've discovered?
Right. So there are some good implications from this research of research, sort of meta research we did, looking at all these different academic and industry studies. So there's some pointers that media agency, advertiser, content people can take out of this, and researchers. We tried to distill down these 5 research questions that we applied to this body of research and get some answers. So is video complementary or substituted across these different platforms? Basically, it's complementary. Does the engagement with these different platforms and devices differ for consumers? Yes. Is there an interactive, complementary, combinatorial effect? Yes. So we need to understand more about how to design messaging around the multimedia cross-platform experience. The goal of our research effort was to look at the existing research and distill down some of the key learnings, but also to expose where we need to learn more. So the practical outcome of our research for all these different industry segments really is, okay, now we think we have some well-formed questions to form a basis for a new set of research endeavors. So the Council for Research Excellence actually will be issuing an RFP, as my understanding, later this year for some new original research to start to address some of the gaps that we uncovered in our review of the academic and industry literature.
So what were some of the things that are still sort of unclear?
The key thing that's unclear is that technology is diffusing so rapidly that we really don't have up-to-date research. So some of the newer research in terms of video games, mobile platforms, and this really new category of media tablets, we can't do research fast enough to understand how people are using that. We know that it's somehow exciting. This whole new product category of media tablets just came into the marketplace, and consumers are taking up that technology pretty rapidly. So why? What is the purpose of that? Is that for consuming linear, from a video perspective? There's other applications too, but is it linear video? Is it interactive video? We see some of the cable companies working with this concept of having a subscription-based video service for these media tablets. Is that what people want, and why? And does that replace or complement other forms of viewing video? I'm not really sure. And what is the economic relationship and expectation consumers have with video and platforms? We see that with traditional linear TV, people expect that to be sort of going back to the lean back, lean forward. Linear TV is a relaxed experience, and people just want to be entertained for the most part, or informed. The interactive kind of platforms, people are more seeking different specific gratifications coming out of the research from the academic side of things, uses and gratification and cultivation kind of things where people have more specific purpose for wanting to consume video. So what are those new specific purposes as they get new capabilities with these different platforms like the media tablets? What new things are they going to do? One of the things we looked at was the adoption and diffusion research in the innovation literature. And a key concept in that innovation literature is called reinvention. So you give people certain capabilities, video technologies and devices in this case, put it in their hands, and the really exciting thing is to see what they do with it. So in the industry side, we build these devices and create content and create certain user interfaces and functionalities because we think people will like them based on market research or insight or creative expectations. But the exciting thing is once you put it in the hands of consumers, what do they do with it? How do they reinvent it? And that's the real value. So in terms of research going forward, that's really an important area to look at. The Council for Research Excellence sponsored that video mapping study, the consumer video mapping study, to watch from an ethnographic perspective how people use video across different devices across time. So that's interesting, and I think that creates a nice bedrock to build more research on. But I think some of these fast-breaking categories like mobile video, the media tablet video, and the TV everywhere concept. I want my content wherever I am on whatever device I happen to have, and my expectations might change. If I'm watching video on a mobile phone, I may have different expectations what that video experience is going to be than if I'm watching it at home on a big flat panel screen. So we just need to learn more about what motivates people to seek out, create, share video, how they engage with different kinds of content, linear content, on-demand content, commercial content, scripted content, to understand from a production perspective what programs are going to be higher rated, from a commercial perspective what kinds of commercial materials and content is more engaging and tied to outcomes like sales lift and brands lift. There's several studies. I mean, all the studies are good and they all address a certain part of our general investigation of video across platforms and user experience and how it engages users. But there were a couple of studies that looked at things a little bit more broadly. There was one study sponsored by ESPN that was published in Journal of Advertising Research, Glenn Ennick's study, that looked at cross-platform video cracking the code. And it really gets to the heart of things. What's going on here? I mean, when we offer video so many different ways, what do people do? And they came up, Glenn came up with his group with a few overall conclusions. One is basically people love video. The more different ways you serve video, the more different ways they're going to use it. And the idea of co-viewing, at least in his research, where you're watching TV on a regular TV set, a linear experience, while also looking at it on a PC or a mobile device, there's some excitement. That's an interesting new way that people are engaging with video, so we should pay attention to it. At least in his research, what he found out was that's not a very significant behavior in terms of how often it happens and throughout how much of the population it happens. My expectation is that's going to change, that people will start to do more multi-device, multi-platform consumption and engagement with video. But that I think it was a pretty extensive effort, and it looked at different kinds of data and tried to integrate those different data sets into one composite viewpoint. And that's a really important thing to do to get a deeper understanding of the complexity and richness of the audience interaction with video media. It's tough to just take survey data. It's also important to start looking at other kinds of data that scale well, like set-top box data. We know exactly what the set-top box is doing. We just need to associate the set-top box behavior, so to speak, with the audience behavior. So if we know what the set-top box is doing, we don't necessarily know who's in front of the TV set. And PC, we can get a lot of server-side and client-side data for what PCs, laptops, and really any connected device is doing. So that's important sort of census-level data, but we also need to marry that somehow with information about the user, which starts to get a little bit imperfect. We may get user registration data, but we really want deeper data from the perspective of fulfilling advertiser and agency goals. And on the media side and program side, understanding who's watching what programs and why they're engaging with it.